Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And I am super excited because we have a stranger. She hasn't been on in a very, very long time, but of course she is a familiar face to the show, and that's Daria DeLucia of At Hoboken Eats. Daria, welcome back.
I'm not a stranger. I'm an old friend.
An old friend. An old friend. I like that. Well, now look, you took a little bit of a hiatus there. In all honesty, it was like a month, maybe two.
Yeah, but it feels like forever.
It does feel like
Nobody knows that we just spent 15 minutes catching up on all the top line things about has been going on for the last month. So
Exactly.
the behind the scenes stuff only Greg sees.
That's it. Exactly. And hopefully Greg forgets. But anyway, a different story for a different time. Today, we're going to be talking about Touch the Heart,
Yes.
which is located at 324 Washington Street in Hoboken. And Daria, I have to be honest with you. Speaking of Greg, I sent Greg there yesterday. They didn't even have a sign outside yet.
No. I've walked by it a couple times. I mean, they opened during COVID.
Tough.
And they absolutely killed it. So you might not see the sign outside, but let's just say you peek your head inside. They have a beautiful mural, florals all over the walls. To put it in perspective, it's the same owners as Saku and Green Rock and Grand Vin. So if you can only imagine from what Saku and Grand Vin look like, you can probably put together what the inside of Touch the Heart looks like. And not only do they have flowers and a floral design on the wall, they actually sell flowers and greenery literally in the restaurant.
So Saku and Grand Vin, which by the way, Daria was at Grand Vin just last year, I believe, trying wine and
Failing
trying
the
to
entire
delicious
wine.
food. I was going to say, you said it, not me. But anyway, those two restaurants are so different.
Oh,
one's
so
a
different.
sushi place, and one's, I would say, more like American cuisine, but they have some Italian.
American-Italian, yeah.
Exactly. So now, what's Touch of Heart? Touch the
Left
Heart.
field just comes out of nowhere, and they are like a fusion dim sum restaurant.
Dim sum.
Fusion. And I'm going to use this one example. We'll go through the menu in a second, but I'm going to use this one example. You think of regular soup dumplings. It's, you put the whole dumpling in your mouth. There's the meat in it, and then there's the soup. We all know. This is a deconstructed soup dumpling.
Talk to me.
Deconstructed. So you have your dumpling, you take a bite of it, and the next to it's like a little tiny shot glass with the soup in it, and then you take your sip of soup.
No way.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like with a twist.
With everything that they do is with a twist.
So would you say then that their menu is more Asian than anything else?
It is, but I'm gonna throw in fusion. I'm gonna throw that word
Fusion.
in there.
Okay, I
fusion
like that.
because it just the twist. It's just not, you're not going to like a all authentic dim sum where it's the soup dumplings. They're throwing in so many crazy and amazing flavors. I was actually just there a couple weeks ago, and we made a joke when we sat down that we're gonna order every dumpling on the menu. We ordered every dumpling
How
on
many
the
dumplings
menu.
are on the menu?
There's like a million, and
no,
they're all different.
there can't be a million. How come? Maybe there's a lot, but
Well, I'm gonna tell you what we got.
Talk to me.
So I want to start off with the cheeseburger dumpling.
Oh my God, talk to me. What's in there? Well, obviously.
Literally what you would think is in there. It's,
Ketchup too?
No.
She goes, no.
It was a dumpling with just like the cheese and the meat, and they had their special sauce on it, and it was yeah. And the crab rangoon nachos. Anybody that follows me knows I'm a very, very big nacho girl. Like, I make them at home when we run out of lettuce because I want to eat something, so I make nachos.
She makes it.
It's so crab rangoon nachos. So the crab is mixed with cream cheese, and it's on a fried wonton. You get maybe like 4 or 6 in an order. I forget. At this point, we had a lot of wine at that point.
Oh, listen. Do they have a liquor license there? We'll get to that, I'm sure. Go ahead.
And they had crema, pico de gallo, and jalapenos on top. So it's one of those where like you're ordering nachos, and instead of getting an abundant, massive plate of nachos, you're getting like the most perfectly portioned, all the toppings on top of your individual nacho. Oh
What
my
else?
God. Asian, I'm sorry, I'm going on.
No, but I'm like
Asian mac and cheese.
Talk to me.
They make a cheesy bechamel sauce.
No.
Yes, with I want to say it's rice noodles, and there's crispy Brussels sprouts, panko breadcrumbs on it. They have peas in it. Like, it again blew my mind. And when I went, it was a brand new menu item, and I was just losing my mind. I was gonna order that for appetizer and meal.
Really? Go ahead, finish. No.
There's so much to get through.
Listen, you can tell she hasn't been on in 2 months, folks.
Now they have their noodles.
Oh.
Yeah. noodles.
Talk to me.
Sesame chicken noodles. I'm gonna let it sit. I'm just gonna let that sit. I'm gonna let that face. Sesame chicken noodles. Wow. The sesame chicken that they have, you heard it here first. It is my favorite thing. I didn't order it. I ordered it the first time we went. I did not order it the second time. I ate off of my friend's plate. Oh. Across the way. I'm sorry, it's not COVID friendly.
You didn't hear that first.
It's not, yeah. That unfortunately happens a lot.
Sesame chicken. So now let me ask you something. I go to a regular Chinese, I shouldn't say regular Chinese, a local Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
Get a sesame chicken dish. It comes with a little rice. It's like almost a chunk of chicken that are fried. Is this similar, or is it like more shredded? Or
it comes in. They slice the chicken up in strips for you, and you know their sauce.
Do they deliver?
They will find. Well, I'll have to circle back on that one. I haven't done delivery yet. I'm gonna say they do. I'm like 99% sure that they do. But
I want to deliver to the studio right now. That's the only reason why
I know.
I'm saying.
I'm basically about to go there from the studio and eat there.
And it's not a close walk,
no,
folks.
No, it's not. It's not. But you get that, and then you also have to get the surf and turf fried rice.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Obviously,
it's right.
Filet mignon and lobster on rice.
Yep.
Boom!
Boom! Nailed it.
No, finally.
Yeah.
I'm like all confused about these fusion dishes. So, but you know, Daria, wow. I'm speechless.
I rambled on a lot because I had to get all of that out.
No, she did, and thank God you did. And I just feel bad for Ritters who have to put all these dishes up underneath us right now. But you know what's funny? It's almost like when they introduced like those Asian sushi fusion spots.
Yeah.
You know, people were like, "Oh, what are these
What is
sushi
this?"
rolls
Yeah.
that they're introducing?"
Yeah.
But they were so popular because they were so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind a little bit of twist on classic dishes, and that's
Me
exactly
too.
what you get here, correct?
Yep, that's exactly it. And they do a very fun thing. So they don't serve alcohol, but they have a whole mocktail list. So you can obviously bring your wine and your beer and whatever alcohol you want, but they will make specific, they have the mocktails already made, and they tell you what alcohol to bring should you want that one, and then what it goes good with.
Great.
So they you're going there and you're getting the full experience. Like they are so accommodating, and I mean, Dan's great. He's amazing. He knows how to run a restaurant.
I mean, we just got to get him a sign. I mean, you know, and it's just amazing that I think that used to be the Pita Pit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so they still serve. Their kitchen's still there, so you can still get takeout and delivery from them.
Wow.
But
they're kind of sharing it.
Yeah, I think they're sharing the kitchen,
Interesting.
but you can't obviously go sit down and have that for.
But you can order off the whole Pita Pit menu, which was very popular
Yeah.
from what I understand. Now let me ask you this, because we have a little bit of time here. Is it a good date night spot?
Yes.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. Maybe not. So.
Boy, that was a change.
Yes. So yes, it 100% is. But I personally know that when I eat dumplings, it's not a pretty sight. So like, maybe second date when you've already.
What's so not pretty about it, Daria?
Okay, you have seen me eat a lot of foods, and you've seen a lot of not pretty scenarios with this said eating foods, okay? So please do not bring up the highlight reel on this segment.
Please do.
Do not.
Guys in the control room, please do.
Do not do that. I just happen to make a mess. Same thing with eating like a large sushi roll on a first date. Like,
yeah.
I personally like pretty. Some people just have that gift where they look good eating food. I would say that, it's a little more difficult.
All right, you're dating a girl for, let's say, 4 months.
Oh, if you don't take her there, ladies, he's out.
Oh my God, did you hear that at home? All right, well, on that note, let me get going to commercial here.
And it's good for group dates, too.
And it's good for group
dates, yes.
Daria, we missed you. This is why we missed you.
I know.
I mean, just to get the love of food out to the Hoboken community.
I know, I miss talking about food.
Exactly.
Matt's tired of it.
Exactly. Daria DeLucia of at Hoboken Eats. You want to follow her on there. Thank you for coming in again. And folks, we will be right back.
Our district has the lowest performing schools in the state. Donald Payne Jr. sent his kids to private school, but he refuses to give parents that same choice. He missed 5 times more votes than anyone else in Congress. Payne's only accomplishment in 8 years is renaming a post office. He failed New Jersey. I'll work to improve schools, provide choice in education, quality health care, and bring back jobs. I'm Jennifer Zanone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to The Pulse. I am guest host Pavel Sokolov, and with me is Josh, here to present commentary on the upcoming election next week from the Republican perspective. Now, Josh, as you know, a lot's going on, especially with this election. Trump Biden. Many opinions, two options. What do you think?
I think it's definitely a fun and exciting time to be alive in America right now. And I know for a lot of the Democratic voters coming out of Hudson County, many of them aren't even alive. So, a lot of them are actually registered dead voters. So I'm sure they're having a great time with this election as well.
As we've seen, corruption comes from many places and sources, especially here in Hudson County. Do you think these ballots that are being mailed through our mailing system can lead to more corruption? How safe do you think this is for us?
Well, I definitely recommend to all voters, Democrat, Republican, Green, Libertarian, doesn't matter, that if you definitely don't want to take a chance with your vote, don't put it in the mail. Bring it down to the ballot-specific boxes that are located all across New Jersey, but most towns have at least one right adjacent to their city hall. I think that's the safest methodology. It requires the least hands on it, and it's also fairly easy for people that are mobile. And you don't have to risk getting it, taking a chance with it getting lost in the mail. I know mail isn't always the safest, way to deliver things. The post office says don't send cash in the mail, but here we are, Governor Murphy, Democrat, who's decided to experiment with our voting system and says everybody must do it by mail, when we know that the mail isn't always 100%. And this isn't a dig on the employees that work in the post office. I love my post lady. She's great. My mail carrier. She's a wonderful person. But it's just the reality of the situation. But when we talk about corruption, we look at the national level. The same party, the Democrats, that said for years without any proof that Donald Trump was corrupt and in the pocket of Eastern Europeaners, that they also say, well, we can't look at Joe Biden's son, profiteering from his position as vice president. So we see, corruption on a local level, and we also see corruption on a national level, not just corruption on the national level, but straight out hypocrisy.
So in your opinion, when Joe Biden tells us that, look at Donald Trump, he's accusing him of corruption, grift, but yet when he does the same things himself, when his own family is personally involved in Eastern European energy companies selling access, how would you say that Joe Biden can tell the American public, you can vote for me and trust me, while at the same time continually increasing corruption in Washington?
Well, the Democrats, since I was a Democrat slightly over 20 years ago, when I first started going to liberal rallies and Democratic causes, and I changed parties in
we all make
in
mistakes.
09.
It's okay.
Yeah. So since I was an active and loud and proud member of the left and went to these rallies, it's always been gaslighting. It's always been accusing the other side, Republicans or even Democrats that weren't left wing enough, of being and of doing what they're doing. And we see the same thing with the national Democrats, unfortunately, in this election. For the last 4 years, they've been accusing Donald Trump of Russian collusion. And it appears, that Hunter and Joe Biden have been doing the very thing that the Democrats were accusing Joe Biden of. And now, an allegation is an allegation. Evidence is evidence. It remains to be seen, and it needs to be investigated. We investigated President Trump. We came up with zero evidence of collusion. And now the Democrats and the news media says, well, we don't even want to investigate what went on with Joe Biden, the Chinese communist, and the Burisma Ukrainian oil company, as well as the former mayor of Moscow, his wife giving $3.5 million to the Biden family, essentially paying for access. So, we see this corruption and we see this hypocrisy, but that's not the only place we see hypocrisy, or at least very moral tension. We see Democrats and the news media allies and the mainstream media, and our local news is not the same thing as the national news media. We see them saying, people have to be alarmed from right-wing extremists that show up to rallies in interior parts of the country holding guns. Doesn't matter that 99.999999% of those quote-unquote right-wing extremists exercising their constitutional rights in those states that have constitutional rights aren't violent. The news media wants to focus on them, and it calls riots and looting, like what's happening in Philadelphia right now, calls that peaceful protests. So the Democrats have gone insane. And if you want law and order, you should vote for President Trump. And it's not just on the national level Democrats have gone insane. Did you know that the police brass in Philadelphia have instructed the rank and file police officers on the ground not to make any arrests in the rioting and looting that's going on right now?
Why aren't they looking out for their people? Aren't they supposed to protect and serve the population of Philadelphia? Instead, they're just turning a blind eye?
But they're turning a blind eye. The orders are to disperse rioting and looting crowds, not to make arrests. And really, the Democrats don't understand what police reform is because they think the police are systemically racist. We saw tons of Democrats across the country going out to these rallies, bending a knee, essentially agreeing with the BLM movement that police were inherently and systematically racist all across the board. And obviously, as Republicans, we know there needs to be improvement, and there's areas where there is imbalance. That's why the president pushed forward, the historic criminal justice reform of the First Act to allow people that were thrown in jail, for example, by Biden's 1994 crime bill for nonviolent crimes that involved, a small amount of drug possession to get out of jail.
So on the topic of further Democratic hypocrisy, since the Democratic Party claims to represent, the working man, the common folk, why is it that Nancy Pelosi refuses to fund a stimulus bill now that we're coming into the second wave of COVID? People are losing jobs and the original stimulus money ran out. Shouldn't they be doing something to help?
Well, definitely the president and the Republican caucus in Congress have said that that's what they want to do. They push forward clean bills that have stimulus both for the states, so the states that are struggling can give money to their people, because a lot of states still have severe restrictions, and it looks like New Jersey may be, going down the road of another closure, God forbid. But really, the Democrats have tried to put pork in terms of spending for their pet projects, whether it's subsidies to industries like solar and wind that may or may not be a good idea, but definitely have nothing to do with COVID, and definitely have nothing to do with helping the American worker. And these people like Nancy Pelosi have the hubris to go on camera, earlier in the shutdown and show people, the super expensive ice cream that she has stocked in her refrigerator, or to say that American people, some of them are desperate for food right now. It's the same way that a mayor, I believe in Paterson, New Jersey, replaced the letter from President Trump in the food aid packages from the Department of Agriculture with his own mayoral letter. Right? They want credit, but they don't want to actually have to do anything. But Nancy Pelosi also went to a hair salon, and she very She knew well at the time that it was illegal to do so, but she thought there's different rules for herself than there are for the American people. And whether right or wrong, like it or leave it, enough American people feel that President Trump understands there should be one rule for everybody, and everybody should be held accountable, and the Democrats don't.
Right, that goes back to his original claim that the Democrats in Congress are just out of touch. They say one thing, but they play by a different set of rules. So going forward now, thinking after COVID passes, with Biden proposing higher taxes, more business regulations, do you think they're up to the task to help lead a recovery?
No, if we look back at past economic downturns, even when there's been Democrats in office, the time at which the economy recovers is when there's been a tax cut for the average people. And this iteration of the Democratic Party, because it wasn't always this insane, it's definitely gotten more insane over the last 20 years, but it hasn't always been this insane, doesn't understand that you don't reach further into someone's pocket to help them out.
Thank you, Josh. You made some really great points. Thank you for having us. We'll be right back.
Our district has the lowest performing schools in the state. Donald Payne Jr. sent his kids to private school, but he refuses to give parents that same choice. He missed 5 times more votes than anyone else in Congress. Payne's only accomplishment in 8 years is renaming a post office. He failed New Jersey. I'll work to improve schools, provide choice in education, quality health care, and bring back jobs. I'm Jennifer Zanone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano, back in the host chair. We want to thank Pavel Sokolov in the last segment for filling in as guest host. He made Josh actually look a little moderate, which is always shocking. But anyway, we have a familiar face next to me, to my right, even though he's not to the right politically, and that is Frank Rosner. Tonight, you are a local Democratic strategist. What does that mean?
Well, that's fine. That means we strategize for Democrats.
There you go. Pretty easy. I mean, I always knew this was going to be a fun segment. I said, Frank's got to be the guy to do this. All right, Frank, we have an election coming up in a few days here. Did you know that?
That is correct. It's only a few days away, November 3rd on
November 3rd.
Tuesday, correct?
First of all, everybody should vote. I personally
Absolutely.
don't care who you vote for. Just don't throw it in my face. All right? And,
Indeed.
I mean, by the way, Frank, you've been involved in local politics, and you've been a student, let's just say, of
That's a
the
good word.
political game for many years. Have you ever seen people just so ruthless with who they support?
I'm not even sure if I'd use the word ruthless. It's more cutthroat and power grabbing. You know, the divisiveness is just incredible. I thought when I ran for council, I thought the town was pretty divided then, and at that time I thought the Hoboken city itself was like a microcosm of the nation.
Right.
Now it's kind of even worse. We're so divided. We've got to get somebody that really unites us. Trump is not going to be the one that's going to do it. The one that's going to unite us is going to be Joe Biden.
Boom. So now, I like that. I was just going to ask you who you voted for, but apparently we know already.
Yes, you
So
do.
it's so funny because you have members of the Conservative Party and Republicans who are like talking about riots and talking about, unpeaceful protests, which, by the way, Joe Biden has said over and over again, rioting is not protesting, and he's not for that, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Whose watch is this under?
Well, you know what? It's kind of interesting because if you look at it, some of the irony is, and not all, I won't attribute it all to Trump, but if you think about it, some of this violence and some of this looting is all self-inflicted by him.
Exactly.
It's kind of like he'll create this disastrous scenario, and he comes in and saves it. Well, if he didn't create it, he wouldn't have had to come in to save it.
If he even saves it. Do you think he even saves it? I mean, he did say
Good point.
in last week's debate that he was the least racist person in that room, even though the moderator was an African-American woman who, by the way, did a phenomenal job in Kristen Welker. So
Yeah, she was great. She
She
really
was
was great. I'll tell you, I think she's friends with Alicia Menendez, who's on MSNBC.
she is.
And
Absolutely.
I think they're pretty close. They kind of started at the same time and starting to rise up. Alicia's really starting to rise on MSNBC. Good stuff.
Exactly. So no, I want to bring something up here because the Republicans love to talk about this. That before the coronavirus,
Right.
the President Trump, quote unquote, had the best economy ever, quote unquote. Was this economy? Because we know the facts. Here are the facts. There were more jobs created in the last 3 years of the Obama administration than there were in the first 3 years of the Trump administration pre-COVID.
This is actually this
So
is
really
true.
quickly, I'm just going to ask
Yep.
my question. Do you think he inherited a good economy?
I think he inherited an economy that was on the roll. They had mended what they needed to mend, and then it was just rocking progressively.
I like.
How's that? Okay.
He threw out the progressive, folks.
And I got to tell you, it was just, the momentum was there. COVID, look, I don't blame Trump for COVID.
And you shouldn't take the blame.
No,
Right.
no, but I blame Trump for the handling of COVID. In fact, I mean, I think most people out there, and you as well, have seen this. He thinks we're turning a corner. I don't think we've even reached the bend, quite frankly, but never mind turning the corner. Wisconsin's up. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and especially now with COVID and the voting. You've heard about the Wisconsin thing that Kavanaugh said, no, we don't want to extend the 3 days.
Yeah.
So that was blocked down by the Supreme Court. However, Pennsylvania and North Carolina, the Supreme Court agreed with the extensions in those two states. So, what?
Now let me ask you, Frank. So and for good reason, people shouldn't believe polls because look what happened 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
Although again, Hillary Clinton was favored to win in the national polls, and she won the popular vote at the end.
She
of the
did
day.
by 3 million something?
By 3 million
Yeah.
or so. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
like, what, 3 percentage points or something? Maybe a
least.
little less than that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but what the difference, I believe, is that the polling is not changing as much as it did 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Trump was closing the gap on Hillary Clinton
He was.
in the battleground states.
He was.
Right now, I think Joe Biden's over 50% in most of these battleground states.
I think in most of those states he is. They're running anywhere from 42 to 50 perhaps, which is a good sign. The fact that his campaign and his strategist
There's his word.
is taking him to Georgia is a major plus.
And Texas.
And Texas. Texas, in fact, I forget if it was Texas maybe. I've seen a meme that voting there among young adults and millennials is 35 to 40% over what it was 4 years ago in a presidential election. I mean, it's a 4 years difference, but still, that speaks for the motivation of the people to go out and vote, whether it's mail-in ballot, or going to the polls itself. I mean, look at all those people that stood in line. That says something. Now, that doesn't mean it's all Biden voters, but I would have a tendency to think that most of them would be Biden voters, not Trump voters, if you're staying in line to vote.
Now, let me ask you this, Frank. So, obviously, if Joe Biden wins every state that Hillary Clinton won, which is a very strong possibility.
It's
I think
plausible,
Nevada
yep.
is the only one, and then he flips Pennsylvania and Wisconsin or Michigan.
Correct.
It looks like he's the next president of the United States, according to the Electoral College. What will Donald Trump and President Trump? I should respect the office. President Trump, absolutely.
All right.
Will President Trump concede defeat?
That's a good question. Everybody's been trying to figure that one out. I think he'll have to. In fact, there was a news item about 20 senators, GOP senators, tackling that issue in case Trump doesn't want to leave the White House. They're going to try to, congeal the Republican Senate to do something about it to make it a legal transition. I don't know the exact details of the article, but I did see the headline, and there's 20 GOP senators that want to tackle that situation should anything like that arise.
Yeah. So now let's talk about obviously the biggest issue going on right now, and that's the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of finger pointing, and you hit the nail on the head. Of course, President Trump should not be blamed for this.
No.
I mean, of course not. But he should take responsibility for knowing about it in January and not really doing anything about it
for sure
until March.
Right.
And he loves to say, well, 2 million people were projected. Dr. Fauci said that 2 million people were projected to die. It's not over. Like you said, we're not even halfway there, correct?
I don't think we're halfway there. Again, I'm not an epidemiologist. We're
Neither
up to
is Donald Trump, President Trump.
President Trump is not a lot of things. Let's put it this way. I'm not going to go through the list. However, I think we're trending up to 3 million cases. 2.8 million right now or something whereabouts. It's going to be about 230,000 deaths attributable to COVID by the end of the month. Maybe by the end of next month, 50,000 here, 20,000 there. I mean, I think that's the way they're looking at it. Right. Most of us don't look at it that way. 1 death, 10,000 deaths. I mean, it is the numbers, but you gotta have some empathy and feeling in your heart. It's not the way to run the show.
Yeah, and really, really quickly, they love to say, I hear from my Republican friends, and I have many of them, they're all great people, that, cases are cases. They're not hospitalizations and deaths. I believe that cases lead to hospitalizations and deaths.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you look at the ratio, let's say 3 million to 250,000 deaths. I mean, still that's pretty high on a percentage basis. Yeah. So if you attribute all those deaths to COVID, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a 1% chance or a 0.5% chance that they're not. Once the statistics are all out and gathered, then we'll have a better analysis of it. And we've still got an ongoing analysis going on.
That's what it is, right?
But there's no doubt that, especially in Wisconsin, they're filling those ICUs like there's no tomorrow. There's no room.
No room. Scary.
Now that's a fact.
That's the issue. The issue is
that's a fact.
Hospitalizations. Exactly. Right. All right, Frank. Really quickly. Your prediction for Tuesday's election, is Joe Biden going to be the next president of the United States?
I do believe it's going to be close. I don't believe the polls anymore. They're suspect. I do believe Joe Biden will be elected, but I think it's going to be close.
Close. Frank Rosner, local Democratic strategist. I like you in this chair, and I like me in this chair with you.
Well, thank you, Peter. It's always a pleasure to be on with you and a pleasure to be associated with the Pulse.
I appreciate that. Frank Rosner. All right, folks, thank you for joining us this week. Join us next week for the Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. Have a great week, everybody.
The Pulse with Peter B. is a proud partner of Eyes on NJ.